Can you hear me? Hi, Jill. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, hi.
Oh, superb. It seems to be working.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple of the others have given back word for this evening, so I'll go ahead more or less on time now. We are 30 minutes later than I wanted to be. The little trick with this, if you plan a meeting and somebody is in front of you, you have, it says start at 8, it won't let you. But if you type it in, 8:01, it will, and I didn't know that, so I went for the optional 8:30. Anyway,
Okay.
what I want to do is just do an overview tonight to explain how I want to take you through the programme, because it really is fairly straightforward. The earlier students did it as an academic exercise. Unfortunately, it didn't meet the assessment criteria, although it was meeting the learning objectives to a certain extent. The actual assessment criteria asks for you to do certain things. So I said to the external verifier, well, wouldn't it be simpler if all these learners are actually in a teaching position, then they can use the evidence that they generate on a day-to-day basis. He said, oh, that's brilliant, brilliant. So I've revamped, if you like. I'll just go through a couple of the things that I put up on here. I don't know whether you've read this or not, but I will just go through it with you. If you have read it, let me know.
Yeah, no, I have read through that.
You have read through that? Oh, well, that's fine. It really just outlines how I want to take you through the programme. What I have done also is I have put that down. I'll do the other one. What I did was I took the course scans, reload that. Yeah. Oops, where have we gone? There. What I did is I took the course front sheet that gives the learning objectives on the side and went through to actually suggest how the best way of going about it would be. And I'm going to run through that with you now to make sure you're happy with understanding where we're coming from.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I did have a quick look at this today just to try and see how much I actually had already of it all. Yeah,
so it's basically looking at your own role and responsibilities in education and training. So again, use your current job descriptions to analyse your role and the responsibilities, and make it into a personal document rather than a sort of theoretical exercise. Summarising the key aspects of legislation. So read and respond to the section with regard to these. I put a section in the Moodle to cover the main legislation with regard to the teaching profession and what we do. So it's just really putting something together. It says summarise really, so it's not asking for anything really deep on that. Again, analyse the relationship and boundaries between the teaching role and other professional roles. I've put a piece in again on that as well, but an organogram of your own school would help, because that more or less denotes who's who and where you actually link up together. And again, describe points of referral to meet learner needs. This again could go on forever. Again, if you use your current workplace or school, college, work policies and procedures with regard to this and describe the needs of learners or workers internally and externally. This is looking at if you've got in a college, for instance, you find during initial assessment that a student has a particular difficulty. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's highlighted. So long as you know who to go to deal with that, because quite often it's not your responsibility to actually deal with it yourself. There will be some recourse within the organisation for you to actually deal with it. And again, for teachers I've had who are actually in junior school, when they've come across a student that is, there is some social problem with at home, again, there will be somebody in the school that will contact social services. It's not really the teacher's responsibility to do that, merely to flag it up.
Yeah. I will say with it, sorry, because my role is very pastoral with some teaching, so my job description has a lot of this in it. So I've sort of tried to put that within the job description.
Yeah,
is that okay, or would you rather have it as separate pieces?
That's what I'm saying. You can make this as personal as you like, because it means that everybody's response will be different and it will match what their circumstances are. I mean, it's not right. It's far from being an academic exercise. I only came into this course partway through. I joined Raman last year, and I came in and looked at some of the teaching sessions he was doing with a group that we were actually doing it in their school. And I made some suggestions at the time, and then when the external verifier said, I'll let that go, but it needs to be done this way. So I said, okay. And I ran a plan through with it, and he said, oh, it's fine, great, superb. So that's the way we'll carry on from now.
Nice.
Have you read any of the other units that you're going to be doing yet?
I had a quick scan through on the spec.
Right.
I had a quick look through that, yeah.
Yeah. What you'll find is that a number of points or learning objectives in other units are very, very similar to the units in LOY in Unit 1.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get down to that as I come through. Large pieces of this will be able to just straight cross-refer to those other units, because you will have covered the detail of what's required by those in this unit. Because the units are written as standalone units. You know, apart from the mandatory ones, the other ones you could choose a number of units. So that's why you'll get the same questions or same points being raised. And sometimes it will be a straight cross-refer. Other times you may have to add a little bit more material because it's asking something very slightly different. So you may just need to add it to actually cover that. So yeah, you're happy with that bit there. And then explain why it's important to identify units. Read and respond using initial assessment. If you've got an initial assessment in your school, then part of that can be to explain why it meets the needs of learners. Analyse the role and use of initial assessment and diagnostics in agreeing individual learning plans. Now, if you've got a couple of learning plans, copies of what initial assessment or diagnostics, if you do them personally, that's great. If you don't, it doesn't matter, so long as you've got copies of 2 of your students. Yeah. Then it will depend on your school. They may ask you to take students' names out when if you're going to use them.
I was going to say, am I all right to redact the names out of the?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing that. That doesn't matter. The actual names don't need to be it. But obviously, they need to be working documents that you've used. Again. They require an explanation of the process I've mentioned leading up to actual teaching. That will cover that completely. Again, copies of 2 learners' ILPs, ostensibly one having a learning issue. And I put something on, a quick through what I've written on there, that you have produced, which need to be actual ones filled in and submitted at the appendices or with the bit that you're going to write. The learning issue can be invented to show the adaptation in later unit. What it asks you to do is adapt a learning plan to suit a particular learner. Now, as I said, it's a practical exercise as far as possible, but where there are, if you've got a class and nobody has got an issue, then you could say what would happen if you had somebody with a hearing issue or something of that nature and how you'd cope with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, that part you could actually invent. It doesn't really matter. It's showing the understanding of how you will actually go through that when you arrive at that situation. Oops, I missed that last bit. Yeah, copies of 1 unit that you've done with them, or module, scheme of work, and an explanation of how you have gathered internal and external requirements.
What do you mean by internal and external requirements?
Well, there may be on that though, when it says if either you must work in accordance with internal and external requirements, your scheme of work will have to meet the actual school's criteria for the curriculum, yeah?
Yeah.
And the school's curriculum will have to meet the requirements of the awarding body, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
The awarding body is the external requirement. I mean,
Right.
like you were although you're doing this course with us at UK Versity, the award is a national award through ATHE, and they're the awarding body. They determined, as I said, I had the meeting with the EV, and I actually put forward how I would want to proceed with this, and he was very happy with that. So that way, I made sure that I've gathered the information that I can run externally, that they're going to be happy with that.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're looking at how, obviously, just how the scheme of work meets the awarding body requirements and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes the wordage on some of these that some of the awarding bodies use is a bit confusing, and what I've tried to do is sort of extemporise a little bit to make sure that you understand what it actually means, not necessarily one page sometimes. Yeah. And again, this is where it becomes. This is where the mistake had been taken before. 3.2 quite plainly says design teaching and learning plans to respond to. Yeah. Now you can't theorise that. You have to show a learning plan that you've put together. Yeah. So, and it says with the individual goals and needs of the learner and the curriculum requirements. This is again copies of your lesson plan and your ILPs, and explain how you use these and how they go into the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
And again, explain how your own planning meets the individual needs of learners. Again, the points at 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4 to actually explain that, because you've already covered all this. Explain ways in which teaching and learning plans can be adapted to meet the individual needs of learners. If you remember, I've just said if you have a learner with an issue, yeah, you can explain exactly, show how you've adapted a lesson plan to that particular learner, or how you would, if you had a learner in that position, how you would actually do it. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
3.5, identify opportunities for learners to provide feedback and inform inclusive practice. Now, it can be a difficult one, because believe it or not, quite a large number of schools don't bring any feedback from the students. They are doing more and more now. Most of the further education, the higher education, they do that. They put a feedback sheet. Sometimes it'll be part way through the course, say how they're getting on, how they're understanding it, how they're picking it up okay, if there are any issues they've got. And basically, if your school has a completed feedback questionnaire where you're taking feedback from students or workers, in the case of work examples, we have some people going through this course who are actually in a workplace position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the feedback questionnaire doesn't necessarily have to be for the two students with the ILPs. It can just be.
No. That again, yeah. It should just say identify opportunities related to provide feedback. That means general learners in general, not specific.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem.
So if your school has those, that's fine. Yeah. And really, you just need to show what those are and how you've actually where that's been picked up and what the procedure is. Sometimes it's easier just to explain the school's procedure. That once these feedback forms are collected, what happens to them? Where do they go? How does that feed back into the system? Yeah, for changes to be made. One of the things that a lot of schools are now getting involved in, because much work has been exam-based for a lot of years, but more and more assessment is coming into it. Now, for the assessment to be fair and honest, it has to have something called an IQA, an internal quality assurer, and the IQA for UK Versity. It is an area that you need to be qualified in. There is a specific qualification for that. I've been an IQA for a lot of years, 20 years probably. That process is becoming more and more important because the IQA, or the internal verifier as it used to be called, is the direct link between the school and the awarding body, but also between the teaching staff and management. Because if issues appear, there's got to be a channel where those can go back into the management system of the school so changes can actually be made, not just talk about them. Yeah. Where things are highlighted, there's got to be a channel or a process that the school has in place to show what happens to feedback and how it changes or how it makes a difference to the process that's happening, the learning process. Okay?
Yeah, great.
Right, explain why it's important to promote appropriate behaviour and respect for others. Again, I put reason found in there. There's a piece of material in there particularly about legislation on this and how you deal with specific behaviour. And again, the college or school will have a policy of behaviour. What happens, you will have a process that you go through. If you get students that continually come in late, more than 10 minutes, then the school will have a policy on how they deal with that. If you're not, I'm pretty certain whichever school you're in, you will have one of those.
You're not. Honestly, you can't believe the amount of policies we've got. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. They will have that one because that's one of the ones that Ofsted look at.
Yeah.
How you deal with disruption and people coming continually late. There will be a disciplinary procedure, I think it's called, on how you deal with that. I think the term is disciplinary. They may have ameliorated that name a little bit now, but that's what it used to be. And again, if you can really just show a copy of that or tell a copy of that and just outline what it says and what those procedures are, and that's sufficient for that. And again, it's a little bit of treat on why it's important to promote that in class as well. Because it links into explaining the ways to promote equality and value diversity. Read and respond, I put a piece of material on there as well. And again, but you can use your work college equality and diversity policy to explain how it's implemented. And again, this is the bit that the change, it's so that you can show how it's actually implemented.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just checked something. I think I am recording. Right, so I've left something up. What happens is all the presentations that we make on screen like this, after they're completed, they are recorded and they go into the Moodle platform. So if anybody wants to, drop back into them and see what I've said or just check something again, that's fine. You can do that.
Oh, good.
No. Yeah, read and respond, blah, blah, blah. Read and respond. Yeah. Establish and sustain a safe, inclusive working environment, learning environment. Again, it follows on from that, and the piece of material that I put in for read and respond covers safe and inclusive as well, and what it means and what it's about. Explain how it's implemented. That's the thing. The last sentence I put on both of those. Explain how it's implemented in your situation.
Yeah.
Analyse the effectiveness of teaching and learning approaches. Use it in your own area of specialism in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners. So this is basically an analysis of what you do in your teaching and your teaching approach and why you think it's effective. I had one student say that it wasn't effective because he was controlled over how he had to deliver something and didn't like it. And he said, can I put that in? I said, exactly, of course you can. You're writing about your situation, yeah? And if it's something you don't agree with, I then went on to say, well, what have you done about it? And he said, well, nothing really, I've just complained about it. So I said, well, you need to put it back through your internal verifier, your IQA, and make suggestions about how it can improve. That way you can feed it into the system. It can be checked back with any awarding body that's involved to make sure it's okay, and then go ahead. So he said, oh, thank you for that. I didn't realise I could do that. I said, you're the teacher. I said, you can do flipping anything you want very nearly. I said, provided you make me aware. So, yeah, I said, you're the guy at the front. You're the guy at the cold face, if you like, and you will find out things that other people don't realise. And it's important that you feed those back. He said, I bet you were popular when you were teaching. I said, I wasn't very popular, I'll be quite honest. I was a bloody nuisance because I've always worked the simple way. By the way, I'm a mechanical engineer by profession. Before I went into teaching, I was 30 years in mechanical engineering. First as a tradesman and then as a manager later on. But basically, I've always been blatantly honest to a fault, and some people don't like that. But anyway, I digress. Again, effective teaching approaches analyse the benefits and limitations of the communication methods and the media used in your own area of specialism. Now, this covers a broad area. It looks at the communication system you've got within the school, how you contact somebody, how they contact you, how you communicate with the students, how you communicate with if you're in a junior or a school up to 16, you will have parents to deal with as well and that sort of thing, and how you actually deal with those. And it looks at, again, benefits and limitations, because sometimes the communication methods that are used are not adequate. People don't find out the things they should find out before they go into a situation. It happens all too often in schools. I'm well aware of it.
Oh, definitely.
And even more in FE colleges. So, yeah, that's again what type of media you use. Also, it can stretch to the resources that you actually use in the classroom. If you use audio-visual equipment and things like that, yeah, and you can use those in if you think they're benefits, if you think they're limitations, because they have limitations. If you've got learners, or I've found, if you've got audio learners, a class full of audio learners, and you put a video on, they're not interested.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If you've got a load of kinesthetic and you don't give them anything to do, then they're like,
yeah, they're going to switch off.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing we've put in there, I've sort of been arguing that we need to use Google Docs or OneNote or something a lot more with our students. Is that something you could put in there? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that is exactly what you can put in there, because that's becoming more and more the norm. Even things, I don't know if you saw the group of kids they had, it was before Christmas Day, so it's a while on. It was on the news. There was a group of children at preschool. These were 4 to 6 years old, and they were teaching them programming.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I thought that was fantastic, because they're like a sponge at that age. They pick things up so quickly. It's really ideal, because that is going to happen. I was reading a resource the other day that tells me that our mobile phones will be obsolete within 10 years.
Oh, I've heard, yeah, I've seen something like that as well.
We'll all be wearing glasses apparently, and it'll all come through those. But never mind. So yeah, effectiveness of those. If you've got any concerns or issues about what you use and what you put them in there. So 5.4, use inclusive learning and teaching approaches, and again, choose your delivery methods and explain why they meet the needs of the learners. Straightforward, that one. There's a resource on that in there as well. Yeah, somewhere.
It's all in the Unit 1 learning platform stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other units are obviously greyed out at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm adding stuff too as I go through and have a look at it and think we could do with a bit more on that. So I am adding bits in. So think nothing of dropping in there at least once a week and have a look if anything's appeared. Because it's a platform I've used a long time ago, but when it first came out, when I was working for, I think it was at Wigan College. But it's not something I've really got into, and I'm afraid, unfortunately, excuse me, I've just turned 73, and I find it quite, my brain is a bit slow to pick things up, you know what I mean? So,
are you doing much better than I would? Me and technology don't always mix.
yeah. But I'm actually getting my head around quite a bit of it now. I mean, the first one was learning to use this platform so that I could actually deliver the lessons from home. But yeah, first way to promote, and that again, it will come in within your teaching, the implementation of your teaching. An example of learner with special needs again will happen on there. Yeah. Adapt teaching and learning process and resources, including technologies to meet the individual needs of learners. That is again, that's covering that area again. Extend. If you look at the task you've been given at 5.5, you extend that task with the examples of a learner with a special need.
Yeah, and it'll cover both.
Yeah, that's right. It's surprising that the reason I'm going fully through this is, I mean, you seem to be pretty well up to speed with this, but a lot of my students are finding real difficulty with this. They've got their head round, I'm going to write about it, and it's got nothing to do with me. And I'm trying to tell, well, I'm sorry, yeah, you're not going to write about it, but it is everything to do with you.
I know, I'll be honest, I mean, I did a course about 2 years ago now that was quite similar, but I'll be honest, it's taken me a while because my learning background's always sort of been, right, here's a reading list, here's an essay title, come back in 6 weeks with an essay.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the way we're going through this I think it's pretty good because A, you've got everything on the Moodle platform. B, you've got direct contact with me as your tutor. If you've got any questions, just send me an email. Yeah, I'll pick them up and go back and give you a response as fast as possible. As I said, I only work part-time, so I'm in and out, but I check my emails at least once a day. So, and I have my UK Versity email is linked to my personal email as well, so it'll come through there as well. So if I've not looked at one, I'll pick it up on the other. Right, we're up to communicate with learners and learning professionals to meet individual learning needs. Again, use the copies of the feedback given to learners, any assessment records, IV feedback to the assessor, minutes of any meetings you've got, particularly on standardisation and school or college work or workplace. A lot of this is the other bit about schools that are bringing in quality assurers now or verifiers to check the assessment process is working okay. What they tend to do now is the following practice that we in FE have been using for quite some time now, and that is we will bring the assessors in on the particular day. We'll spend probably about a 2-hour meeting, and they'll all be given a piece of work to assess, the same piece of work to assess, and to see what the results are. To see if they're, just to make sure that we're all more or less on the same page. And quite honestly, I've been doing that for a while now, and they're not usually very far out. If work's coming through and it's good, it's obvious. If work's coming through, it's bad, it's obvious. It's the borderline bits you've usually got the problems with. So, yeah. Explain the purposes and types of assessment used in education and training. So yeah, you've got initial, you've got formative, summative, questioning tests, skills tests, feedback sheets, all those things that you've been mentioning before. That's the culmination of that there. And then really just look at the effectiveness of the assessment methods in relation to meeting the individual needs of your learners. So again, what assessment methods do you use and why? Talk about different methods and choose one to analyse. That can be a sort of separate issue. If you've done a particular personal issue you can write about, then that's fine. You just generally ask that, the effectiveness of methods in general. Yeah. I'm not sure whether I've covered all the different methods on the Moodle platform, but there is another course, I don't know whether you can get into it, and that's the assessor course, which we'll have.
Oh, no, I think it'll only come up. It only comes up with this one.
Yeah. I mean, I run the assessor course as well. There's a number of people doing that at the moment, and it's only 2 units. It's a level 3. It's only 2 units, but it's extremely useful. Okay. Use types and method of assessment, including peer and self-assessment. Involve learners in the assessment. Meet individual needs of learners. Enable learners to produce assessment. So yeah. Use the assessment records for your 2 learners again here. Explain the task 6.4 and 6.5 and 6.6. You can run those all together. Yeah. Use a question and feedback. Record outcomes of assessment. If you've got any records from your learners, then use those records. Yeah. I'm just talking about. Communicate assessment information to other professionals with an interest in the learner, and that is the internal verifier or the IQA. That information will be passed through. It may be that you have got a student that needs some remedial work or some support, then obviously that will be in there as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
7, analyse ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated in planning, delivering and assessing inclusive teaching and learning. Diagnostic tests, English, Maths and IT, explanation of where they apply and fit into your course. They may not all be in your course, but say why. I put that in because we were teaching in a music school. And he said, well, we don't use core units in here, we're teaching music. So I said, oh, right, okay. So they don't have to write anything down. Oh, yeah, they have to do assignments. I said, so we're using English. Oh, yeah. I said, what about rhythm and time signatures? Oh, yeah, I haven't thought about it that way. I said, what about the sound desk where they've got to produce different sounds on the very complex electronics you've got set up in here? I said, is that not information technology of a different type? But, oh, yeah, I've looked at it like that. So, yeah, we was able to actually fill it in, even in something that on the face of it didn't cover it, but they actually do in some form. So, again, he was able then to write that in terms of actual core curriculum. It may not look like that, but he was able to write a good piece on it. So
where, I mean, obviously ours is a bit different because mine's a bit different because they post, because it says sixth form college, well, it's a sixth form school. So obviously they'll come in with, we base a lot of it on GCSE results. So there's not necessarily separate diagnostic testing. It's not like an adult learner that might not have a formal qualification.
But again,
that's all right to explain that then.
Just go through it. Again, you can direct all these into how you operate in your particular circumstance.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Again, this next one, there is a piece on there, something I put on recently on reflective learning, reflection of own practice. That was it. So it's review the effectiveness of your own practice in planning, delivering, assessing, inclusive teaching and learning, and taking into account the views of learners and others. So that's a combination of all the things we've been talking about before. And it's the learning plans, the lesson plans, the results of the assessments, it's the feedback sheets from the learners. All of that grows into how you actually work within your school. So again, it's a reflective view of your own practice. This is one I missed that here. I need to bring this up. Reflective view of your own practice. Check additional material needed to comply with Unit 3, Learning Objective 7. So you need to look at Unit 3, Learning Objective 7 and see what it says. In my view, this covers it. But the way I read that next unit, there is a slight difference. It may need, if you added a few more lines text into this response, that would then fully cover Unit 3, Learning Objective 7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll read over that.
Yeah, and again, identify areas of improvement. Quite often, what I've done with this is, ideas from your reflection of learning outcome 7 in Unit 3 again, and this task can be again cross-referenced to that particular thing. But what I also include in this is you've got, again, a certain amount of CPDs done by most teachers every year. So you can even add in, as part of your plan, what you plan for your CPD for next year or something like that. Yeah. It can be aspirational rather than practical.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, I'll just, at the end of it, all these suggestions are there to help with the naturally occurring you're producing on a day-to-day basis. Some of you might not cover all the practices. For instance, initial assessment, I've covered this before, I mentioned it to you earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same applies to other processes. Again, there are some learners on this course with you that haven't got, they didn't do an ILP. Because he was teaching, I think it was Islamic studies. So why not do an ILP? I said, because if they're coming into the course with you, they're coming in for a specific reason. So they will have a goal, an outcome from what they want from the course and why they're doing it. And he said, well, yeah, of course they will. I said, so, but we have no formal documents. So I said, well, I've got blank ILPs, I'll put on the system, and you can pull one of those off and use that. So he was well happy with that. Again, it's just having some format, because then he doesn't have to write. The way I looked at it, you were looking at something like, for the academic approach, there was 11,000 and 12,000 words per unit, which is like ridiculous. Yeah. Doing it this way is going to cut it down by at least a half more, in my opinion. If I was writing, it'd be less anyway. So that's basically right through learning objective 1. The learning objectives of Unit 1. There are a lot. It is a big one, this. But as I said before, as you move into the other units, there will be a certain amount of cross-referencing available. And what I've tried to do, I'm making a sheet out for every unit that you're going to do, similar to this. And what I'll do is I'll highlight where the cross-reference points are, so that if you bump into one, you can then have a look back at what we've written, and then basically say, well, I need to have something about that, and that will fully cover it. So that's the way we work through it. It is a holistic approach rather than a unit by unit approach, because of the amount of overlap there is in it. I don't think there's anything else I want to cover on that today. I'm just going to make sure that you are happy. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention, as far as work's concerned, as soon as you've got a piece of work for me to look at, by all means email it to me. The Moodle, there's something wrong on the Moodle platform. It's not accepting it at the moment. I'm sorting it out. But in the meantime, if you've got a piece of work and say, you want to look at this, just email it to me and I'll pick it up and I'll do a review on it and send it back to you. Is that okay?
Oh, no, that's brilliant. Thank you,
But like I say, don't wait till you finish it all. Just send them in and have a look, and I can put some remarks on there that may help, and then send those back to you. What it will mean, I only usually have to do that once, because usually once you've got a gist of what I'm looking for and you've got it right, as we've gone through this now, you'll follow on with the rest of it just the same, and there shouldn't be any problem with that at all. It is, like I say, it's a big qualification. It's got a lot of units, and there's an awful lot in it, but some of it does cross over. And if we do it like this, it will speed up the process considerably. I remember the first group that did the academic, it took a long time. And we were very slow getting working as well. But this will sort of speed it up. Was there anything else I wanted to mention while we're on today? There was. I can't think what it was. Oh yes, that was it. This actual front sheet, there is a blank on Moodle. It is an extremely useful document because we use it in 3 different ways. I've used it one way. What you can do, the assessor can use it for assessing your work, yeah, because it's got achieved or not yet achieved on there as well. You can actually use it when you make an electronic portfolio. Have you done one before?
No.
Right, okay. The easiest way to do it is to start off with Unit 1. When you write in your pieces, obviously it'll drop into pages, won't it?
Yeah.
So all you've got, when you can use this document, and where I've written all this guff down this right-hand side here, you can put page 3, page 6, page 7, yeah? That's all you need to write in there and put that in your portfolio, yeah? And then it's all the evidence that you're going to put for that is on that page. When it's being assessed, I'm just looking at that page and going, yeah, that's fine, achieved, yeah? And it can be used in that respect as well. And again, the electronic portfolio, you can keep it into units. It'll be Unit 1 will be page 1 to 5 or however many it is. And then Unit 2 will start at page, the next one on. What I tend to do, students used to start at page 1 again with each unit. And it ends up getting quite confused. So what I tend to do is tell students to start with page 1 and finish with whatever page it ends up at. Yeah?
Yeah, just keep running as a Word document down, yeah.
Run it through, and when you get to Unit 2 will start at page, whatever page it starts at, and 3, etc. Yeah. That was all I think I wanted to say today. Have you got any questions?
No, that's been great. Thanks, Phil. It's made
You're happy with that?
Yeah, that's great.
That's working okay. Okay?
Yeah.
I think you'll find it's fairly straightforward through this way. And as I said, I will look at what we've got on for read and respond, and if there's anything I feel there's a bit weak or a bit light, I'll add some stuff to it. So by all means, Bob, and have a look from time to time.
Yeah, I will do.
Okay then, Jill. Thanks for your meeting. I'll close the meeting now. I'll try and make it for 8 o'clock next week.
Yeah, I've had the emails. The notifications have come through. So I think it said 8 till 8 o'clock on those.
Yeah. But what it'll do is I'll make it 8:01. If it won't go on here, although she may have got it now because I got Amrita to actually have them on. I gave her the schedule, and I think she put all the invites in, or is putting all the invites in. So that means you'll be getting an email from her, me. If you understand what I'm saying. I just put the schedule. She's dealing with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Not a problem. Oh, lovely. Okay. Thanks very much.
Speak again soon, and don't forget, if you've got any questions, send me a mail.
I will do. Right, lovely. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.